It's so easy to keep track in your head, especially once you get to a 5 handicap, say. That it's remarkable to me, your ability to just shut out reality and not keep track of your score. But I'm also impressed by it, and it seems to work for you. So you not having 18 whole score goals, not having handicap goals, that makes sense for your personality. But my goals are going to be a little different, I will say that.
Yeah, so let me hear them.
Okay, so I have 3.5 goals, I'd say. So 3 to 4, and they range from. So I have one maintenance goal, where this is sort of like something I did last year that I want to continue this year. I have one improvement goal, and I have one outrageously lofty goal. So So I don't want to step back in any of these areas, and I want to improve in all of them. So the first one, I don't know how to feel about this. I did not expect to do this last year, but in our club championship, I made the final group of our club championship. I came in 4th, so in a 4-person group. But I really expected to be. I would have guessed if I'd had to bet on myself, I would have said I'm going to come in 7th to 9th place is where I would have said, not because my capabilities aren't higher, but because I've never performed in those circumstances. I shot 71 in that first round and missed a short putt for 70, and was solidly in the final group of the club championship, playing with the club champion. I want to do that again this year. I'd love to improve on that. Of course, I'd love to win the club championship this year. I think that is within my capabilities. I don't think that would be an outrageous goal. But my maintenance goal is to once again find myself in the final group on the second day of the club championship.
Okay. I love it. I didn't get to play in the club championship. I had to work. So I wasn't there to play. I also wasn't there to experience seeing the joy on your face when those scores were posted and knowing that you got into the final group. We definitely texted about it. I was happy for you. Was bummed to hear that you didn't play as well as you hoped on day 2.
Oh, we didn't have to mention that. That's fine. No, you can just bring that right up.
I didn't say what you shot. I don't even remember what you shot. I
didn't shoot scores. 82, Brian. What are you talking? Brian, stop it. Stop.
Sounds like you might have shot 82, but listen.
No, okay.
You got the reps in. And did you feel like on day 1, what'd you say, you shot a 71?
Yeah.
So that's not playing over your head, but that's definitely like you're playing well to put up a 71.
Exactly to my handicap. I played to my handicap in competition, and so I finished the year at a 1.4 handicap. I should shoot 71s around Honeybrook, no matter the circumstances.
A quarter of the time.
Yeah, a quarter of the time. So I want to do that when it matters. I want to do that when it matters again this year.
Love it. I think it's a great goal.
My improvement goal, I just said that I finished the year at a 1.4 handicap. That's the lowest I've ever finished a year at. I hit 1.1 at one point this year. That was the lowest I'd ever been. And so now, I feel for most of my life, I'm someone who has never had I've had like one lesson in my life. Mm-hmm. I always felt like I was an overachieving golfer. I felt like I was, I didn't come from a wealthy family and I didn't grow up at a country club and all these things. I, taught myself to play at Mojalaki, looping 9 holes over and over again at 11 years old. That's the story I tell. And so the fact that I was a low single digit always felt like I've overcome the odds, if anything. Now I've been in the 1 to 4 range for a long time. I've been here for 5+ years probably.
Okay.
Now I'm starting to feel like I'm an underachieving 1.4. And so it's finally time for me to realign my goals back to what most people would think. There's no reason I shouldn't at some point this year have a plus handicap. There's zero reason.
Yeah.
I was, a couple of shots and a couple rounds from having my handicap be 0 point something. And over a year here, with some goals for improvement, with some practice, with playing more consistently than ever, I want at some point my handicap to be plus 0.1 or better.
Yeah.
It's 1.5 shots. I need to improve 1.5 shots over 20 rounds at some point this year, and I believe I can do it, and there's no reason that I shouldn't accomplish that goal.
I love it. I think you can get there too. I think sometimes, you always hear golfers say, like, as your handicap gets lower, man, those last few strokes, they're really hard. And they are, but I think we can, it's sort of like the 4-minute mile thing. Like, we can, that 0.0 seems like this really huge, daunting thing. And yes, you do need to play very good golf to get there. But like you're saying, it's a stroke and a half.
It's a stroke and a half.
Just like to go from an 8.5 to a 7 is a stroke and a half. So,
yep.
Love that. Love that goal.
I've got one more goal. It's 2 goals in one. And so one is this lofty goal that's not going to happen, and then the other goal is how I'm going to accomplish this.
Okay.
And it goes along with we're going to play 100 rounds this year. Excuse me. So it goes along with your goal of 100 rounds this year. So I'm going to tag on to your 100 rounds this year. First of all, I want 100 rounds as well. Okay. I want, in addition to 100 rounds, I want to play one. I want to have one practice day every week that I don't play.
Okay.
So I don't know. Was yours hours based? How did you do your practice thing again?
I just wanted 25 times I wanted to get out to practice. Yeah. Just to practice.
It's probably very similar here. We're probably talking about through the season, 1 time a week. I want to go, and for me, it's going to be short game almost exclusively. I want to go chip and putt basically once a week. And it doesn't matter if I've played 4 times, that week. There's got to be a time when it's not just warming up, when it's not just before or after a round. It's like, no, I'm going for 90 minutes to 2 hours, and I am putting and I am chipping, and that is all I'm doing, and then I am driving home. That's it. I want to do that once a week.
As you're saying this, and I had a similar goal, obviously, like we just said, it makes me wonder, what has a lower success rate? People making exercise New Year's resolutions or golfers making practice resolutions? Because I know we're not the only ones saying this, and I know a lot of people aren't going to do it, and I don't want to be one of those people.
But this one is so reasonable to me because we're going to golf. We golf. We do golf.
We do golf.
And we do often show up early and hit the range and hit some short game practice and all this stuff. Really, the only thing I'm adding to my life is 1 day of practicing, and that is it. And so I believe that is doable. I believe that on 1 day when I don't feel like golfing, I'm tired, maybe I'm not going to work on the range much because I feel like that doesn't even help me that much. I would need to work on my short game. I'll be a little sore from my 4 days of golfing. I can figure out, there's a golf course 2 miles from me. I can go there and putt for free whenever I want, and I can find 1 time a week to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably going to be when our schedules don't align, because if they did align, we'd probably be playing golf. So probably be doing a lot of practicing on our own.
And so I say that ties into my lofty goal, because the only way I'm going to accomplish this goal is by playing a lot, practicing more than I've ever practiced. And this is, I don't know, you might find this an outrageous goal, but at Honeybrook this year, so only our rounds at our home course, it's a par 70. My goal is to shoot in the 60s more than I shoot in the 80s.
Okay. Okay, I have like devil and angel on my shoulder here.
Let's go devil first. I think devil first.
Okay.
That's your motto, I know.
Devil first. That you said it, not me. My motto is bone meat. So I'm not going to ask you how many times you've shot in the 80s at Honeybrook because it's probably you don't have that many fingers. So it's probably over 100. But how many times have you shot?
It's over 100.
You don't think you've?
No,
how many rounds have you played at Honeybrook?
Probably
500.
I'd say 400.
4. You're right. It's probably very close to 100, but maybe not 100.
Yeah.
And how many times have you been in the 60s?
3.
Okay. So the devil on my shoulder is saying that we're not talking about a minor change here. We're talking about a monumental change in the scores on your scorecard to make this happen. But the angel is saying, is it monumental though? Because what do you think your scoring average is at Honeybrook? 76, 77, maybe?
It's about 75.4, if you want to know.
Oh, I did want to know.
Yeah, last year, 75.4.
So that's halfway between 70 and 80.
This is here's why I feel like this is reasonable, because I can shoot 80 by accident any time, obviously. But at Honeybrook, it's a par 70, so that's 10 over, first of all. So I want to shoot 1 under more than I shoot 10 over. And that feels, as a 1 handicap, like that should be very reasonable, first of all. Secondarily, I did not shoot in the 80s many times at Honeybrook last year. I think it was like 5.
Okay.
So I think we probably played 75 rounds there last year. And weirdly, so I did not shoot in the 60s last year after shooting in the 60s, I believe, 4 times the year before. So that's where I'm like, okay, I think I shot
4 times. You just said you've only done it 3.
Not at Honeybrook. I'm saying in the 60s in general.
Oh, gotcha.
So I shot in the 60s at golf courses 4 times in 2021. Didn't do it in 2022, though I shot 70 and 71 more times than I've ever shot it. So I shot even par and 1 over like 12 times.
Can confirm.
So I'm like, okay, so I'm right there. And so if I could combine 2021 and 2022 and kind of meet in the middle and shoot 8 rounds in the 60s and maintain shooting, 5 rounds in the 80s, then I'm there. That's my logic. Is that if I could just, so I think my floor is where it needs to be. Okay, so I think my floor is like, no, you're going to shoot in the 80s, even at Honeybrook, even at your home course. You're going to shoot in the 80s, hopefully, between 5 and 10 times out of 100 rounds.
Okay.
Can I improve my ceiling to where those good rounds get over that hump, and I'm shooting in the 60s 1 out of 10 times. Mm-hmm. And if I can do that rather than have it be a complete anomaly, then they're neck and neck come this fall.
You make a good case. You missed your calling as a lawyer defending clearly guilty criminals. I also would like your permission to cut out a little clip earlier when you said you can shoot 80 on accident. I'd like to I'd like to have
accident because I'm not illiterate, but continue.
By accident, sorry. I would like your permission. Actually, now that you've corrected my grammar, I'm not even going to ask for permission. I'm just going to cut that clip, and then the next time you shoot 82 at Honeybrook, I'm just going to play that for you on a loop. Because because everybody listening at home who's never broken 80 before they don't like you right now because you said that even accidentally you're still going to shoot 79. So, but I will say
my real long-term goal is I haven't shot 90 in like 4 years. I just want to never shoot 90 again. That's my goal.
It's a good goal.
That's the long-term goal. That's for a different podcast.
I did shoot 90 last year at least once. I was looking through my golf scores. I don't have access to my to my gin scores at the moment, but I did keep some in a spreadsheet up through July last year, and I was looking through, and I was like, oh, look at that 90. That hurts. I believe it might have been the same day that you could have become a 0 point something at Cross Gates. But then you doubled the last 2 holes. I had just a miserable day that day. I'd love to not shoot 90 again. But I will say, getting back to your goal here, I can think of so many times when you have been really frustrated somewhere between like hole 10 and 14. And I'm like, what? Like, where are you right now? And you're like, oh, I'm 6 over. And I'm like, oh, like you've been huffing and pouting like you're 12 over, but you're only 5 or 6 over. And I only bring that up to say that you're right. Most of your rounds are in the 70s at Honeybrook. And I also bring it up just to take a shot at you to say that sometimes you're acting as if you're about to shoot 85, but you're actually just going to shoot 75, which is an endearing quality.
I don't know where you are in your golf journey with this, because you're gonna come to this point too, because you're at your lowest handicap and you want to get to a better handicap. Your best golf is still in front of you, and so there until 2 years ago, I'd say my goal every round, basically wherever I played, was to break 80. Mm-hmm. So I was like, if I finish with a 7 at the front of my score, I'm happy. That's great. That's what I came out here to do. Because when I was younger, that's what the pros finish with most of the time. So if you have a 7 in front of your score, you're getting there.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I think about a year and a half ago, something flipped in my brain where I realized, no, that's not the goal anymore. The goal is so. And my floor. How much do you think about ceiling versus floor? Is my question, because for me, I have become a much, much better golfer over the last 4 years, and my ceiling has improved very marginally. I have completed a couple rounds that I could have completed back then, to be perfectly honest, but didn't because I choked them away. But what has improved is that floor, where it used to be I felt like I was going to shoot even par or 90. Not literally 90, but that's what it felt like. It felt like even par or 85, depending on where my swing was that day. And then now it feels like, no, I'm really frustrated if I'm 6 over through 14.
Yeah, I get that. And we're always going to be different, like you said. I actually, like, one of my goals on the course is to try to always be having a good time and to not get huffy. I use that word for you a lot. But I will say, like, even when you're upset about how you're playing, you're still a joy to be around. Like, you're not. Like, you're not.
That felt so pandering. What you just said to me.
And maybe it's because I know you well enough that I can actually, like I don't know. Some people, when they playing poorly and they get mad and pissy, like, you just don't want to be around them, and they're like ruining the round for everyone. Like, I don't feel like that's ever happened with you.
I do feel the need to clarify. I have no problem with you saying this. I'm not a club thrower. Like, I'm not a club thrower.
No, you're not. You're not.
I'm not. I'm never unleashing profanities on the golf course. I breathe heavier. I sigh a lot. I insult myself.
You do. You don't
quite a bit.
It seems like you don't try to hide it, which that's kind of normal, actually, and probably more healthy than me, who I just start whistling when I am getting really frustrated with myself.
Truly sociopathic behavior.
But the ceiling floor thing is interesting, because I feel like the reason that I'm at a 5 and not an 8 or a 9 anymore is because my ceiling has improved. And so those days when I'm actually playing some of my best golf, instead of it being a 75 or a 76, it's like a 73. And in the span of 20 rounds, if I can do that 2 or 3 times, all of a sudden now I'm at a 5. So, but I still have stinkers. I mean, again, looking at my spreadsheet, 3 penalty shots in some of these early spring rounds last year, or like one round I had I was keeping track of how many doubles or worse I had, and I had 6 in one round, and I was just like, good grief. Like, so I've got some work to do on my floor for sure.
It's very interesting because like that's a good illustration of it. So you're a 5, I'm a 1.4. So first of all, that's only 3.6 shots, so that's not a tremendous amount at this point. That spread was wider 3 years ago. Even though I've improved, we've both improved, but you've improved by a greater margin. And the way I have felt that is it used to feel like if I shot where I feel like I should shoot, then you had no chance to beat me. That's what it felt like. And now it feels like, yes, there are days when I shoot average and you have a stinker, as you called it, and it's like, okay, there's some separation.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of days last year where I felt like I'm playing really well, and you're right with me come the 15th hole.
Yeah.
And it's like that is the difference for you, because my ceiling has ceiling shift in playing with you, because in the past it felt like if I played to my capabilities, I was going to beat you. I was going to beat you pretty comfortably, even if you played pretty well that day. Me playing to my capabilities would be 71 and you'd shoot 78. But like in the last couple years, that has shifted to where if I play to my capabilities, there's still a bunch of times. In the last year, there were a lot of times where I was really okay to happy with where my round was. I'm 1-2 over come to the 14th or 15th hole, and you are right there with me. And that has been a shift in the way you've played. So I feel what you're saying about your ceiling rather than your floor. You still do. So sometimes I'll play average. Sometimes I'll shoot 77 and you've shot 84 or whatever the number is exactly. But there were a bunch of rounds last year where I'm like, oh, I'm playing really well, and I'm not clear of Brian, and we're on the 15th hole.
And you knew my score, but I didn't know my score.
Yeah, you're, again,
Cause
I don't want to say the word sociopath again, but it's bizarre that you could be 2 over and not know you're 2 over. It's just the most basic. You have to just be so oblivious.
It is such an intentional. It is a skill, but and it's not like I've had to work at it. I don't know. It's like I don't know when it happened. I've always known that knowing my score was not helping me out, and thinking about my score was not helping me. And I've gone through stretches where I'm like, no, I need to embrace it. I need to lean into it. I want to know exactly where I am. But then I'll forget to do that, and next thing I know, I'm on hole 7, and I don't really know where I'm at, and I don't care because I don't know. It's a gift, Adam. It's a gift that you don't want that I have.
It is a okay. I'm going to play the devil's advocate.
I'm not saying it's
I'm going to play the devil's
positive.
Advocate. The devil's advocate.
Yes.
That is a gift that will where the ceiling, to continue to use that term, is limited, because so say you get to a point, say in 3 years you're a scratch golfer, okay? So say in 3 years you're a +1, and you're considering, hey, can I win the club championship this year, the gross club championship? Come that point, you are going to know exactly where you are. So when you get to a point where, hey, I'm in the biggest golf moment of my life, you're going to be playing with the people. You are going to know, hey, I'm 1 shot behind on the 18th hole, and I need to birdie this hole. And that's going to be your first rep of...
Not my first. I have tried it before.
Not your first, but it's going to be very early in the... Every time I've known that I have a chance at a personal record, I've known from the 7th hole on that I had a chance at my personal record, and I consider every single shot after that feels like a rep of this matters to me now, and so I think it's a good way to get from, if a lot of people who can't break 100 would probably, they don't break 100 because they know they're trying to break 100, and they might break 90 like Parker did, if they could just get out of their heads entirely about their score. But when it comes down to, hey, we're playing the highest level of golf that we're ever going to play, and we're trying to compete a little bit, and we're trying to win a club championship or something, we're going to know exactly where we stand, and I want as many reps of caring about the next shot as much as possible as I can.
It's a fine attempt at devil's advocate. I would argue that I still do care about the next shot as much as possible. In fact, I would argue I might care more because I'm not caring about my score. I would also say, while it's not flirting with even par, my second best round ever at the time was, so I shot 3 over 73 in June of 2017. It was with you, actually, at Honeybrook.
I remember.
I made 15 pars and 3 bogeys. And then I believe it was a couple of months later in a Ryder Cup event when it was Ryder Cup singles. I'm playing against Ryan Burnley, who I don't even think it was handicapped, but he was like maybe playing at a 6 or a 7, and I was like at an 11 or a 12, and just trying to beat him, not even thinking about my score at all.
Yep.
Started off on hole 15, and I only bring that up because I decided to hit iron off the tee and topped one about 30 yards with not only the 4 of us there, but the next foursome also waiting in their carts. But I ended up shooting a 75 that day and had no idea. I beat Ryan with maybe like 2 holes left or something, and he congratulated me. And then at the end, he was like, "Nice round, 75." And I was like, "Wait, what? 75?" Like if he would have said 80, I would have been like, "Okay, great." Like, yeah, that feels. So anyway, I have played good golf. I have played some of my best golf, even not knowing at all where I was.
Yeah, I have never had a putt on the 18th hole where it doesn't matter whether this putt was for 69 or for 89 or for 93, where I didn't go on the 18th hole, here's a putt for 77. Oh, next putt for 78. You've never had a putt on the 18th hole where the putt wasn't, this is a putt for. And it feels like, and I can get in my head, because I've always run through these scenarios, like, what if I was winning the U.S. Open? This is the putt for. And and it's like, every single putt is like, this is the putt for this achievement, whether it's an achievement or not. At 81, but I can talk myself into 81 is so. I just told you, I don't want to shoot in the 80s this year. I'm done with the 80s. I'm done with them, Brian. But I can talk myself on the 18th hole into 81 is so much better than 82 that I feel a little nervous over my putt for 81 because it's so much better than 82.
And yet there's nothing I like more than sinking that final putt and then walking over to my scorecard and be like, okay, let's see what I shot on the front, and then let's see what I shot on the back, and then let's add them up together.
Yeah, we are different. We're different creatures, Brian. It's...
We really are.
We don't live on the same planet.
There's a lot of other golf things that we differ on too that I'm sure we'll hit on throughout this year. Okay, this is my last thing. I want to leave you with this.
Yep.
And it kind of ties it all together. And it's something I said to you the other day, and you immediately laughed at me. So that's when I knew that it was really something to hold on to.
Yeah.
I said, so this thought that I'm going to get to started with me thinking, what would a 2 do? I'm a 5 handicap, and it's not even that 2 is my goal for the year, but you and I talked about, like, you talked about feeling like an overachieving 1.4, right? And I could pretty easily get to a point where I'm thinking like I'm a fraudulent 5. Like, I'm a 5, but wait till you see me play, or wait till these spring rounds kick in, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just having this mindset like that I'm a 5, but I shouldn't be. And I think plenty of people have talked over the years about how when you set up expectations like that, you're probably going to end up living up to them. And so trying to not so much convince myself that there's a 2 handicap in there, but just like in the decisions that I make, in whether I practice or not, or and then, yes, my confidence that I take to the course. So I read this quote the other day in a great article on Max Homa, in Golf Magazine. I don't think it was Golf Digest. I think it was Golf, by Dylan DeShare. And I loved it. It was Max Homa quoting Vin Scully, the late Vin Scully, who was quoting Sir Laurence Olivier, the actor.
The thespian,
the late actor.
I would say.
Yeah, the late thespian. So the quote from Max, from Vince, from Lawrence was that he wanted to have the humility to prepare and the confidence to pull it off. The humility to prepare, but the confidence to pull it off. Like, that was the secret to success. And man, I read that and I loved it. And so I put my own little twist on it, that I want to have this year the humility to prepare like a 2 handicap and the confidence to play like a 2 handicap or a scratch or a 1 or a 3 or whatever it is. But I love that 2 sides of that coin, like putting the work in because you know you need to, but also I think for me, that other piece, and I come back to that 3rd shot on the 4th hole where I was standing there talking myself out of the fact that can I hit this shot in the middle of February that gave me some trouble last year?
Right.
And then being like, no, you know what? I'm going to have confidence that I can do this because I actually do think I can do it. So what do you think about that?
I love it, and I think it applies to all of our goals. It applies to what I want to do, where it's just like, I think one thing, so in our first podcast, I told the story of my U.S. Mid-Am collapse where I got the shanks. And I remember saying to my dad on the drive home from that, I said, I am done pretending I'm a good golfer until I change the way I do this, essentially. And I didn't know what I meant. That's why I said do this instead of how I practice, but I'm done pretending that I'm a great golfer. And I've continued to improve, and it's been slow, but I've been frustrated the last couple of years that the improvement has not really been there. I've ranged between a 1.5 and a 4, and I haven't changed anything. I've just kind of beat the same drum of I play as much as I can. I care a lot. I read about stuff. I watch some videos. I don't practice a ton. And I'm like, you know what? If I am me getting to a plus handicap this year is perfectly reasonable, but not without the humility to prepare, not without the, hey, I'm going to practice like a plus handicap. And I think if I even just say, hey, 90 minutes a week, I'm going to go putt, and I'm just going to putt. And does that fill the golf void in that day? No, it doesn't for me. I don't know about everyone else. It does not fill that void. But I need to get out there, and I need to actually put some work into this if I actually want to get to the goals that I say I want to get to. So that resonates with me very deeply.
Love it. So these are the goals. These are the golf goals. These are the bag chatter goals. I feel like the second half of this podcast, we talked very passionately and very motivatedly about getting better at golf because we love doing that. But we also like being silly and making jokes and trying to make people laugh too. And so I think it's going to be an interesting journey this year, balancing the two. Last year, like, it was our first year doing it. We were figuring it out. Some days we went out there and played really well and never really got the camera out to do anything. And then some days we were both just wanted to try to make funny stuff for TikTok. So I think that's going to be interesting, us figuring that out this year.
That balance will be
important. For sure. And what's going to win out some days. And we'll document it all. And, the idea is to come back here in 10 months and see how many of these goals we hit.